Now, if you'll just take off your coat, I can start my examination.
I never take my coat off. I just couldn't.
He's really very modest.
They snapped their fingers, lived in a Gothic mansion, and made the macabre look like the most loving family on television. The Addams Family premiered on September 18, 1964, and over 60 years later, people still can't stop talking about it. But what happened to the actors who brought those unforgettable characters to life? Today, we're going back to the beginning to find out. This is the cast of The Addams Family, 1964, then and now, 2026. John Astin, Gomez Addams. There's no character quite like Gomez Addams, a man who fenced with abandon in the living room, blew up toy trains purely for the joy of it, and kissed his way up his wife's arm every time she said a word of French. He was enthusiastic, wildly affectionate, entirely unconcerned with what the world thought of him, and genuinely, completely happy. In the landscape of 1960s television fathers, he was unlike anyone else, and the man who played him turned out to be just as singular. John Allen Astin was born on March 30th, 1930 in Baltimore, Maryland. His father, Allen Varley Astin, was a physicist who directed the National Bureau of Standards, a serious man of science who ran a U.S. government agency. Growing up in that household gave young John a certain confidence and worldliness that would eventually show up in everything he did on screen. But it was the theater, not the laboratory, that claimed him. He enrolled at Washington and Jefferson College to study mathematics, then transferred to Johns Hopkins University, where he earned a drama degree instead. By 1954, he had landed his first Broadway appearance as an understudy in Major Barbara, and then a role in the long-running off-Broadway production of the Threepenny Opera. He worked steadily through the late 1950s in original Broadway productions, and then moved toward television and film. His first significant screen credit came in the film version of West Side Story in 1961, where he played Glad Hand, the well-meaning social worker at the dance. He followed that with supporting roles in That Touch of Mink, 1962, and Move Over, Darling, 1963. In 1962, he co-starred with comedian Marty Ingalls in the ABC sitcom I'm Dickens, He's Fenster, playing one half of a pair of partners in a carpentry business. The show lasted one season, but established him as a comic talent to watch. Then came the role that would follow him everywhere. During Addams Family auditions, Astin originally tried out for the role of Lurch, the towering butler. The producers recognized something else in him, an almost manic warmth, and redirected him toward the patriarch. He was 34 years old when the show premiered on September 18, 1964. As Gomez, Astin brought a specific philosophy to the character, part Shakespeare, part Zen, part physical comedy. He studied yoga and incorporated it into Gomez's physicality. He did many of his scenes in demanding positions, including a great many takes upside down or leaning in unusual ways, which he later recalled as both exhausting and entirely worth it. The chemistry between him and Carolyn Jones, who played Morticia, was one of the show's great gifts, two people genuinely enjoying their work together, and it showed every week on screen. When The Addams Family was canceled after 2 seasons in April 1966, Astin didn't slow down. He joined the cast of The Pruitts of Southampton alongside several of his former castmates, played the Riddler in Season 2 of Batman, and continued working in television throughout the late 1960s and 1970s. He took a lead role in the TV movie Evil Roy Slade in 1972, appeared in the Disney comedy Freaky Friday, 1976, had dual roles in National Lampoon's European Vacation, 1985, and appeared in Teen Wolf 2, 1987, and Peter Jackson's The Frighteners, 1996. He was also a filmmaker. His directorial debut, the short comedic film Prelude, 1968, earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Live Action Short Film, a fact that often surprises people who know him primarily as Gomez. On television, he had a recurring role in the 1980s sitcom Night Court as Buddy Ryan, the biological father of Judge Harry Stone, a role that introduced him to a whole new generation of viewers. He also appeared in The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. and voiced characters in multiple animated series, including the role of Bull Gator on Tasmania. He returned to the Addams universe more than once. In 1977, he reprised Gomez in the reunion TV film Halloween with the new Addams Family, alongside most of the original cast. In 1992, he voiced Gomez in the animated Addams Family series, earning an Emmy Award nomination for the performance. and in the late 1990s, he appeared in the Canadian-produced series The New Addams Family, this time as Grandpapa Addams, passing the torch while staying within the family. His personal life had its own full story. His first marriage to Suzanne Hahn produced 3 sons. His second marriage was to actress Patty Duke, and during that marriage he became the adoptive father of her son Sean, who grew up to play Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He and Patty Duke divorced in 1985, and in 1989 he married Valerie Ann Sandoval. The couple still live in Baltimore, the city he has returned to again and again throughout his life. In 2001, Astin joined the faculty at his alma mater, Johns Hopkins University, teaching in the Theater Arts and Studies department and holding the title of Homewood Professor of the Arts. He often noted with pride that he was one of the very few working actors teaching every day at a major university. He retired from the position in 2021 at the age of 91. For years, he has also toured a one-man stage show about Edgar Allan Poe, a writer he has loved deeply for most of his adult life. He is a fixture at Baltimore's annual celebration of Poe's birthday, and has spoken often about his deep admiration for Poe's imagination and precision. As of 2026, John Astin is 95 years old. He is the last surviving member of the original cast. He has largely transitioned to voice work in recent years, but has never stepped away from his craft entirely. No supposed Addams family curse has managed to slow him down. Carolyn Jones, Morticia Addams. If there is one image that captures the spirit of the whole show, it might be Morticia standing in the doorway of that Gothic mansion, pale, composed, elegant, and entirely untroubled by anything around her. Carolyn Jones built that image from the ground up, and she did it with a kind of effortless authority that made Morticia impossible to imagine any other way. Jones was born on April 28, 1930, in Amarillo, Texas. Her childhood was shaped by severe asthma that kept her indoors for long stretches. Unable to play with other children much of the time, she educated herself with tutors, listened to the radio, and developed a rich inner life that would eventually translate into real depth as a performer. She graduated high school and moved to California to study at the Pasadena Playhouse, one of the great training grounds of Hollywood's studio era. She got her start in the early 1950s, appearing in films and television at a time when the industry was deeply competitive. She appeared in several films selected for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress, including The War of the Worlds, 1953, House of Wax, 1953, The Big Heat, 1953, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. She worked alongside Frank Sinatra in The Tender Trap, 1955, and A Hole in the Head, 1959, with Marlon Brando in Desiree, 1954, and with Elvis Presley in King Creole, 1958. In 1957, a 6-minute performance as a Greenwich Village beatnik in The Bachelor Party, a role that might have been overlooked, earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. It was a stunning amount of impact from a small amount of screen time. The following year, she won a Golden Globe Award for Most Promising Newcomer for her work in Marjorie Morningstar, 1958. Off-screen, she was married 4 times. Her most prominent marriage was to television producer Aaron Spelling, whom she wed in 1953. At the time, Spelling was still an actor figuring out his path. He would go on to become one of the most successful producers in the history of American television. Jones converted to Judaism for the marriage. They were together for over a decade before separating in 1963 and divorcing in 1964, and by all accounts remained genuinely fond of each other. She later made guest appearances on his hit series The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. Charles Addams had personally requested Jones for the role of Morticia. She was a devoted fan of his New Yorker cartoons, and the two became friends over the course of the show. She understood Morticia instinctively, not as a villain or a horror figure, but as a woman who was content, witty, and deeply devoted to her family. Her movement was carefully crafted. The tight black dress she wore allowed only the tiniest steps, which she turned into a kind of quiet, floating grace. She later said that much of the character grew out of the costume itself. She loved the role and was genuinely sorry to see it end. After the series concluded in 1966, she reprised both Morticia and Morticia's sister Ophelia in the 1977 reunion film Halloween with the New Addams Family. Through the 1970s, she appeared in the miniseries Roots 1977 and made guest appearances on Fantasy Island and The Love Boat. In 1982, she took on the role of Myrna Clegg, the scheming political matriarch on the CBS daytime soap opera Capital. A bold, complex character she described with typical dry wit as a ruthless, filthy, rich old broad with a sunken red bathtub for two. Capital began filming the same year she received a diagnosis of colon cancer. She told her colleagues she was being treated for ulcers and kept working, sometimes in a wheelchair when the pain became unmanageable. She finished the first season. By early 1983, the cancer had spread to her liver and stomach. She fell into a coma in July at her home in West Hollywood and passed away on August 3, 1983. She was 53 years old. Her Morticia costume and black wig were donated to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. A collection of the Addams Family scripts was donated to UCLA. Her ashes were interred in her mother's crypt at Melrose Abbey Memorial Park in Anaheim, California. Jackie Coogan, Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester, bald, wide-eyed, giggling at the edge of chaos, somehow the most endearing presence in any room he entered, was played by a man whose real life contained more drama, more loss, and more hard-won triumph than any character he ever played on screen. Jackie Coogan was born John Leslie Coogan on October 26, 1914, in Los Angeles, into a theatrical family. His father was an actor. Charlie Chaplin discovered him doing the shimmy at the Orpheum Theater vaudeville house when Coogan was still a very small child. Chaplin cast him in A Day's Pleasure, 1919, and then gave him the lead alongside himself in The Kid, 1921. The result was one of the most extraordinary moments in early Hollywood history. Coogan's performance in The Kid made him one of the most famous people on earth. He was mobbed at train stations. He received the first major merchandise deal in Hollywood history, his face on everything from peanut butter to dolls to stationery. By the early 1920s, Rudolph Valentino and Douglas Fairbanks were less popular at the box office. He was still a small child. By the time Coogan turned 21 and expected to inherit his earnings, reportedly around $4 million, the money was gone. His mother and stepfather had spent virtually all of it. Under California law at the time, a child's earnings legally belonged to the parent. He sued. The court battle was public and painful, and ultimately yielded only a fraction of what had been earned. The public outrage was so significant that it moved the California legislature to act, resulting in the California Child Actors Bill of 1939, still known today as the Coogan Law, which requires that a percentage of a child performer's earnings be placed in a protected trust. Generations of child actors have been protected by this law, which came directly out of his ordeal. His personal trials continued. In May 1935, he was the sole survivor of a car crash in San Diego County that killed his father and 3 others. He was 20 years old. 6 months later came the discovery of his empty accounts. Coogan enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1941 and became a glider pilot, volunteering for some of the most hazardous assignments available. He joined the 1st Air Commando Group and in March 1944 flew British troops behind Japanese lines in Burma in nighttime glider missions. He flew 7 sorties behind enemy lines and spoke of the experience quietly and rarely. After the war, the transition back to acting was difficult. He worked through the 1940s and 1950s in small parts and television appearances, building a modest career without the prominence of his childhood fame. Then, in 1964, he auditioned for The Addams Family. He wanted the role of Uncle Fester so badly that when he was initially turned down, he went home, shaved his entire head, assembled his own costume and makeup based on his own vision of the character, and walked back in to show the producers exactly what Fester could be. He was 49 years old. It worked. Fester gave him a second wave of fame and genuine public affection. After the series ended in 1966, he never had difficulty finding work again. He reprised the role in the 1972 animated Scooby-Doo crossover, crossover in the 1973 animated Addams Family series and in the 1977 reunion film. He made guest appearances on shows including The Brady Bunch, Hawaii Five-0, and others through the early 1970s. He passed away on March 1st, 1984, in Santa Monica, California, of heart failure. He was 69 years old. His funeral was open to the public as he had requested. John Astin delivered the eulogy, describing his castmate as a man who had a great lust for life and who was as much fun to work with as anyone he had ever known. Coogan was interred at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. His name endures in entertainment law. Every child actor working today in California has the Coogan law standing between them and the kind of financial exploitation he suffered. That is not a small thing, and it didn't come without cost. Ted Cassidy, Lurch. The original plan was simple. Lurch would not speak. He was conceived as a silent, towering presence, much as he had been in the Charles Addams cartoons. He would open the door, loom over visitors, and say nothing at all. That plan lasted approximately as long as the first rehearsal. Theodore Crawford Cassidy was born on July 31, 1932, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and grew up in Philippi, West Virginia. He was not a slow developer who gradually reached his remarkable height. He was 6 feet 1 inch tall by the age of 11, eventually growing to 6 feet 9. Despite that, he was an exceptional student. He entered 3rd grade at age 6, was academically ahead throughout his schooling, and went on to play college basketball at Stetson University in Florida. After graduating, he began a career in news radio. He worked as a staff announcer for WFAA in Dallas, Texas, and in November 1963, he was part of the station's coverage of the Kennedy assassination, one of the first reporters on the scene to interview eyewitnesses. It was serious, important work, and he was good at it. But he had a different destination in mind, and within a year, he had moved to California to pursue acting. In 1964, he auditioned for the role of Lurch. The character was intended to be mute. During the rehearsal of the scene in which Lurch answers the front door, Cassidy improvised, stepping into the doorframe and delivering a single, low, resonant line. "You rang?" The studio crew reacted immediately. The producers reworked the character to give Lurch a voice, a personality, and more screen time. That improvised line became one of the most recognizable pieces of dialogue in television history, and Cassidy delivered it with perfect timing for all 64 episodes. What many viewers didn't know was that Cassidy also played Thing, the disembodied hand that appeared from boxes around the house. He played both characters throughout the series, with the exception of scenes where Lurch and Thing appeared in the same frame, for which the show's associate producer stepped in to provide the hand. After the Addams Family ended in 1966, Cassidy became one of the most in-demand character actors in Hollywood. He appeared in Star Trek 1966, playing the android Ruck in the episode What Are Little Girls Made Of? He played Injun Joe in The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. He played Harvey Logan, the knife fighter who challenges Butch Cassidy's leadership with memorable directness, in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. His voice became one of his greatest professional assets. He voiced characters for Hanna-Barbera across many series throughout the 1970s, including Frankenstein Jr. in Frankenstein Jr. and The Impossibles, and Ben Grimm in The New Fantastic Four. He narrated the intro sequence for the live-action Incredible Hulk television series in 1977 and provided the Hulk's roars and growls for the first 2 seasons of the show. He reprised Lurch in the 1972 Scooby-Doo animated crossover, in the 1973 animated Addams Family series, and in the 1977 reunion film. He also made a playful cameo in the Batman episode The Penguin's Nest, visible as a tenant playing the Addams Family theme on a harpsichord when Batman and Robin climb past his window. The physical qualities that made Cassidy such a compelling screen presence were connected to a medical condition called acromegaly, a growth hormone disorder with serious cardiovascular implications. He underwent open heart surgery to remove a benign tumor from his heart at St. Vincent Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was discharged to recover at home, suffered complications, was readmitted, and died on January 16, 1979, at the age of 46. His family held a private service at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. His ashes were buried in the backyard of his home in Woodland Hills. He left behind 2 children, a son named Sean and a daughter named Cameron, both of whom became attorneys. In Philippi, West Virginia, the community that raised him holds an annual event called Lurch Fest in his memory, a warm celebration of the man and the character he made immortal with 2 improvised words. Blossom Rock. Grandmama Addams. Grandmama shuffled through every episode with her broomstick, brewed potions that never quite worked the way she intended, and occasionally wrestled the alligator that lived in the basement, all with the settled air of a woman who found her surroundings entirely normal. The actress behind her had an equally remarkable life, and she came to her greatest fame at nearly 70 years old. Blossom Rock was born Edith Marie Blossom McDonald on August 21, 1895, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her younger sister was Jeanette MacDonald, the enormously popular singer and actress of MGM's golden era, beloved for her operetta films throughout the 1930s. The two sisters had grown up together and performed in vaudeville together as young women, playing Philadelphia houses before either of them had any real standing in the entertainment world. Blossom married actor Clarence Rock in 1926, and the two performed as a vaudeville act called Rock and Blossom from 1925 to 1929. When vaudeville faded, she moved toward film. She became a contract player at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in 1937 under the stage name Marie Blake, deliberately choosing a name that kept her distinct from her now famous younger sister. Her most sustained film work came as Sally, the hospital switchboard operator, in the Dr. Kildare film series, a recurring presence across 9 films produced throughout the late 1930s and 1940s. She also appeared in Love Finds Andy Hardy, 1938, and in the original Broadway production of Dead End, 1935 to 37. Through the 1950s and into the early 1960s, she moved steadily through television work, taking character roles and building a career that was reliable without being widely celebrated. Then came Grandmama. When The Addams Family premiered in 1964, Blossom Rock was 68 years old. She played the role for all 64 episodes and brought to it a particular flavor of comic resignation. Grandmama was never surprised by anything, because in her world, nothing was surprising. It was the role of her career, and she found in it a kind of recognition that had mostly eluded her in 6 decades of professional work. Clarence had died in 1960, and the couple had no children. After the series ended in 1966, Rock suffered a stroke in December 1967 that significantly affected her speech and left her in declining health for the remaining years of her life. She was unable to join her former castmates for the 1977 reunion film, though she reportedly watched it from the motion picture and television country house and hospital. She passed away on January 14, 1978 in Los Angeles at the age of 82. She was interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. In a coincidence that no one in her family could have predicted, she died on the exact same date as her younger sister Jeanette, 13 years apart, both on January 14th. Lisa Loring, Wednesday Addams. She was 6 years old when she first walked onto the set, and she had learned her lines before she could properly read, memorizing the words by sound before the meaning of reading had fully arrived. Lisa Loring was the original Wednesday Addams, the pale, pigtailed, deadpan girl who adored spiders and looked at the world with the unblinking calm of someone who had made peace with everything dark about it, and she created a template that no one who came after could entirely escape. Loring was born Lisa Ann DeCinces on February 16, 1958, on Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, where both her parents served in the United States Navy. They divorced not long after her birth, and she moved to Los Angeles with her mother. She started modeling at age 3 and had already appeared in an episode of Dr. Kildare before she was cast in The Addams Family. She played Wednesday for all 64 episodes. She later said at fan conventions that the show felt like a real family to her, that Carolyn Jones and John Astin were like parents on set, and that she carries those memories warmly even now. Jones in particular took care of her. After the series ended in 1966, Loring joined the cast of The Pruitts of Southampton alongside Astin and other former castmates, and made guest appearances on The Girl from UNCLE and a few other shows before her career stalled, as child actors' careers so often do in the transition years. In 1973, at 15, she married her first husband. She had her first daughter the following year. Her mother died of alcoholism in 1974 at the age of 34. She returned to the screen in 1977 to reprise Wednesday, now aged up as Wednesday Sr., in Halloween with the New Addams Family. Her most sustained adult acting work came between 1980 and 1983, playing Cricket Montgomery on the CBS soap opera As the World Turns. She also appeared in several low-budget horror films in the late 1980s and worked for a time as a makeup artist. The early 1990s brought serious personal struggles, including a battle with drug addiction. She sought help in 1992, rebuilt her life, and spoke openly about those years in later interviews, without self-pity and without evasion. She continued making appearances at fan conventions well into later life, and when Netflix's Wednesday premiered in 2022, her work came back into the conversation in a meaningful way. Jenna Ortega publicly credited Loring as an inspiration and incorporated a direct tribute to her shuffle dance in a sequence that went viral worldwide, introducing Loring to a generation that hadn't been born when the original series aired. It was a beautiful full-circle moment. Lisa Loring passed away on January 28, 2023, at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California, at the age of 64, following a massive stroke brought on by high blood pressure. Her two daughters were at her side when she passed. With her death, John Astin became the sole surviving member of the original cast. Ken Weatherwax, Pugsley Addams. Pugsley was round-cheeked, fond of explosives and insects, devoted to his strange family, and perfectly at ease in his gothic home. He was played by a boy from a deeply show business family who would spend much of his adult life working in the industry, just not in front of the camera. Ken Weatherwax was born Kenneth Patrick Weatherwax on September 29, 1955, in Los Angeles. His family background was woven into Hollywood. His aunt was actress and dancer Ruby Keeler, celebrated for her 1930s Warner Brothers musicals. His uncles Frank and Rudd Weatherwax trained Lassie and owned the first dog to hold the role. His half-brother Joey D. Vieira played Porky Brockway on the first 3 seasons of Lassie. Weatherwax made his acting debut in Gleam toothpaste commercials in the early 1960s, appearing alongside actress Alice Pierce. Then came the audition for The Addams Family, which he won in part by reading alongside Carolyn Jones and John Astin. He played Pugsley for all 64 episodes of the original series. His experience on the show was genuinely happy, and he said so consistently in interviews across the years. But when the show ended and he returned to regular school as a recognizable face with a well-known character name, the reception was unkind. He was bullied and struggled to adjust. He acknowledged openly in a 2008 interview that he hadn't handled the transition well. He was asked to leave several schools, and he enlisted in the U.S. Army at 17. The moment his head was shaved and he was in uniform, he recalled with some humor, he looked exactly like everyone else, which was an enormous relief after years of being unavoidably recognizable. He reprised Pugsley, now shown as a tall and muscular young adult, in the 1977 reunion film, and provided the voice of Pugsley for the 1973 animated series. After the military, he built a career behind the camera as a grip and set builder in Hollywood, skilled work that kept him connected to the film world on his own terms. He and Lisa Loring remained close friends for the rest of his life. The two appeared together at Addams Family fan events and conventions throughout the years, and their friendship was a quiet constant in lives that had each moved well away from the spotlight of their childhood. Weatherwax passed away on December 7, 2014, of a heart attack at his home in West Hills, California. He was 59 years old. Felix Silla, cousin It. He was completely invisible inside the costume, covered from the crown of his head to the floor in long flowing hair, topped with a bowler hat and sunglasses, communicating only in high-speed gibberish. And yet Cousin It became one of the most beloved recurring characters in the show's entire run. The man underneath all that hair was a former circus performer from Italy who came to Hollywood with an extraordinary physical skill set and left fingerprints on some of the most beloved productions of the 20th century. Felix Silla was born on January 11, 1937, in the small village of Roccacasale in the Abruzzo region of Italy. He trained as a circus performer from childhood, developing skills as a tumbler, bareback rider, and trapeze artist. In 1955, at 18, he came to the United States and toured with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. That circus background made him a natural stuntman, and he began picking up film work in Hollywood starting in 1963. Cousin It first appeared in the first season episode, Cousin It visits the Addams family in 1965 and returned throughout both seasons, appearing in 17 episodes. The character's voice, that cheerful, incomprehensible, rapid-fire gibberish, was provided separately by studio sound engineer Anthony Magro. Silla provided the physical body of the character. The original costume was made of real human hair, which created a fire hazard on a set where cast and crew smoked freely. It was eventually replaced with a flame-retardant synthetic material. After the Addams family, Silla built an impressive career across film and television. He was a body double for children in The Towering Inferno, 1974. He appeared in Battlestar Galactica, 1978, and Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, 1979 to 81. Most notably, he was one of the hang-gliding Ewoks in Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, 1983, a credit he carried with pride for the rest of his life. He also made an appearance in Star Trek. His work across stunt performance and character roles stretched across nearly 3 decades. He was the only member of the original cast to return for the 1973 animated Addams Family series, reprising Cousin It in that format. He later retired from acting in the early 1990s, but remained a familiar and warmly received presence at fan conventions for many years afterward, always delighted that Cousin It had endured as long as the character had. Felix Silla passed away on April 16, 2021 in Las Vegas from pancreatic cancer. He was 84 years old. The legacy. The Addams family ran for just 64 episodes across 2 seasons, concluding in April 1966. By most television metrics, it was a modest run, and yet it never truly faded. It went into syndication and stayed there. It spawned animated series, a 1977 reunion film, 2 major theatrical films in the early 1990s starring Raul Julia and Angelica Houston, a Broadway musical in 2009, and most recently Netflix's Wednesday, which took the original premise into the 21st century and became one of the most watched series on the platform. The characters this cast created in black and white in 1964 have never stopped being recognizable. Snap your fingers in the right rhythm anywhere in the world and someone will know exactly what you mean. What made the show work, genuinely work, not just as a novelty, but as something people return to across generations, was the warmth inside the strangeness. Gomez and Morticia were the most devoted couple on television. The children were loved and encouraged even in their most alarming pursuits. The family looked out for one another, laughed together, and made room for everyone no matter how unusual. It was, in its own way, an idealized portrait of a family, just dressed in cobwebs and candlelight. The cast brought that warmth to life. Most of them are gone now. Blossom Rock passed in 1978. Ted Cassidy in 1979, Carolyn Jones in 1983, Jackie Coogan in 1984, Ken Weatherwax in 2014, Felix Silla in 2021, Lisa Loring in January 2023. John Astin is still with us at 95, the last surviving member, a man who has spent over 7 decades doing the thing he loves, teaching it to others when he could, and carrying the memory of his castmates with grace and good humor. Their work lives on in every snap of fingers, every actress who has put on Wednesday's braids, every impression of Lurch's quiet "you rang," and in every person who watched that show as a child and quietly understood, perhaps for the first time, that being a little different might not be such a bad thing after all. If you enjoyed this look back at the cast of the Addams Family, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps the channel, and it means a lot. And if you want to keep seeing stories like this one about the classic shows and the real people who made them, go ahead and hit subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching.